Hello artists! Hopefully you've just watched the video on Faith Ringgold and making her wonderful story quilts. So they're really beautiful. They tell a story with the illustration, but if you looked closely at the quilt, you could also notice that there's actually a text story also written on the quilt. So today we're going to be illustrating a story from your memory. Could be about you, could be about someone else. I have one of my favorite stories that I've illustrated on sketchbook, so I hope you think it's funny. So a couple years ago, we went to New Jersey for my cousin's wedding, and my nephew Talon is pictured here. We were all playing on the beach and running in the waves and running out of the waves, but it was kind of cold that day, so we didn't really want to go swimming. But this huge fish head washed up on the shore. And we were playing and we were just like, oh, somebody's going to end up stepping on that fish head, because we kept telling the kiddos to watch out for that fish head. Well, sure enough, my nephew Talon was backing up from a wave and stepped on the fish head and landed straight on top of it. And it was so disgusting and awesome at the same time. So you can kind of tell the story because I've given you the setting of a beach and I've given you some parts of it, like a boy and a fish head. But you may not have known all the details unless I was able to tell you. But at least you got some part of the idea. It still looks like a quilt as well because I put some color blocks on the sides. So if I had more time, I might go in and add some decoration, just kind of like Faith Ringgold paints some of her own decorations on those quilt pieces. I might go in and draw some hearts or flowers or zigzag lines or spirals. But right now I'm just going to show you and walk you through the basic steps of illustrating your story quilt. Okay, so if you're like me, you have a picture, you need to start all over. We're going to look for those hamburger lines at the top. Remember, if I go too fast, always feel free to pause the video so that you can catch up. So I'm going to hit the hamburger lines, 3 dots and 3 lines. I want to say new sketch, the paintbrush with a plus sign, the bottom button create, and then I get to choose whether I want to save or not save this picture. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. Remember, as always, our picture is going to be way bigger than our screen. So I like to pinch, 2-finger pinch, size it down. You can make it sideways or vertical, does not matter which way it goes. So an easy way to break up those blocks into the edges of my story quilt, I'm going to look for the shape tool at the top. So it has a circle and a square. So once I locate this circle and a square, you can notice that there's 3 options: a line, circle, and square. I could choose the square option, but I'm actually going to stick with the line. And then I'm going to pick my drawing tool. So I like to use this technical pen, highlighted on the left, and I'm going to choose to draw in the color black. So remember, your colors are located on the side, and then the whiteness, brightness, darkness, and then even gray are located within this diamond shape. So I'm going to choose black, and I'm going to draw with my finger a line. And you notice that it could be crooked if I don't kind of straighten it out. So I'm going to try to straighten it out as best as I can. And what I really want to do is I want to make sure that it touches the top and the bottom. This is going to make it so much easier when I go to fill it in my bucket tool later. Same thing on the sides. I want to make sure it goes all the way from side to side of my paper. And if it's not exactly perfect, that's okay. So now I've got those big basic lines. I'm going to come in and zoom in a little bit closer to make the lines on the bottom. And again, I really want to make sure that I close in these lines to make a new shape, because when I go to fill it with my bucket tool, this one right here, if you look really closely, it has a little gap. So I'm going to press the backwards arrow. I want to make sure, even if it kind of goes into my picture frame, I would rather go into my picture frame and make it a little easier for myself later than have to go back and try again. So now you can see I've got 2 parts. They're not perfect, but that's okay. I'm just really trying to get the idea of what a quilt looks like. So I'm zooming in. Oops, I went not far enough again. Just making some basic lines across my page. So after I do this, oops, I'm having a hard time today getting those lines right. So after I do this, then I'm going to use that bucket tool. We've used this before, but in case you forget, it's located right next to this shape tool that we're using right now. Goodness gracious, Mrs. Maskell. There we go. All right, so now I've got just these basic shapes. So I'm going to use the bucket tool. It's located 3 over from the shape tool. And this will allow me to quickly fill in shapes. So I'm gonna just choose some colors like red. I'm gonna tap a couple squares. So remember I said this is gonna be so much easier? I can go super duper fast if I have this bucket tool and all of those lines filled in. So you get to kind of choose your color pattern. You can choose with like a pattern that's consistent, like red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue. I'm just kind of going a little bit wonky and choosing whichever colors I want and just filling it in at random. Let's pick one more for that spot right there. Okay, so now you can see I've got the background quilt pattern, and I can choose my background color or I can just fill. So where I started, I was thinking and brainstorming my story. So sometimes that takes several minutes to think about what story you want to illustrate. So I remember I was going to do the beach. So I kind of picked this sandy color. With my technical pen, I just drew a line for the sand, right? Oops, didn't go all the way. So again, I want to make sure I go all the way to the edge because it's going to make it so much easier to bucket fill. Then I went in and I'm going to choose a background color for my water. So I'm choosing kind of a oceany blue. And now this is at least a kind of a start. Of course, all artists, we want to make sure we make like it really look like an ocean. So I'm really going to work on shading. So this time I might use like a paintbrush. And again, I can change the size of my paintbrush, the flow, and the wetness. So really play around with these because these are going to help you make your picture look more realistic or more like you're actually wanting it to look. So I don't think I have my size or wetness or flow up enough that I'd really like. So I'm going to come in, really turn those up higher so we can see the white that I'm talking about here. There, it's finally kind of coming in. I actually might choose this tattoo inker because I know that it's going to give me a much brighter white. And it's really just kind of playing around. I'm going to use that other brush for some more details as we come in. This is really going to look sloppy jalopy because I'm just kind of laying out the colors quickly, but I'm going to also fade in with my paintbrush. So I'm going to take that paintbrush. It's really good for like adding softer details. So I'm going to kind of fade that blue, that line from the white to the blue, so it looks a little softer. And again, I'm going to really come in and add some shadows. Ooh, that's very dark. Let's go back and change those settings. There we go. That's a little bit better. So then I can make some shadows for underneath the wave. Again, like fading them out so it's not so drastic. So this is just like a great start. It's not going to be perfect, but again, I'm going to add more details in here where you might add some more too. So after I kind of get this step, so remember we've done something similar to this. Then I'm going to come back in and start thinking about my pieces of my story, and I can draw them, but I know I was running a little short on time, so I wanted to get that story in there right away. So when I wanted to get my story in, I was thinking about using that remove BG and pulling pictures from the internet. So let's go ahead and practice doing that. So I'm going to go back out. I'm going to go on to Safari, and this is remove BG. So I'm going to go on to another page. And so I first looked up my image. So again, if I'm looking up a story about ice cream, I could do that. I looked up a picture of a fish head. So after I looked up images of fish heads, I found one that looked really great for my story, so I chose this one. Once I click it, I'm going to push and hold until that pops. When it pops, I'm going to say add to photos. Now remember, I could add this directly into my sketchbook, but I'm going to see all of that kind of creamy tan background. It's not going to work as well. So I have another tab. I'm going to type in remove.bg into this bar right here. When I do, it will bring me right here to this website. And yours might look a little bit different if you start, let's just start from where you'll look at. Remove.bg. And yours will start looking like this. So I'm going to go to the blue button that says Upload Image. And then it will say Photo Library. I'm going to look for that fish head picture, and I'm going to hit Use. Once it removes the background, you'll see it has this checker background. So it no longer has that cream color background. It's just the fish head. So one more time, I'm going to click and hold till it pops. Add to Photos. And now I can add it into my sketchbook. So I open up sketchbook again. I'm going to look for the mountains with the plus arrow. Here it is. Here's the two versions. You can see the one without and the one with. Now I have my fish head in my story, so I could totally make it like a huge fish head. But again, I want to make it a little bit more realistic. So here it is, that big old fish head. When I'm done, remember this is the best time to resize, move it, do anything you want to do to change. But when you hit done, it's really hard to change. So now that I've placed my fish head, I'm going to go back and retell that part of the story with the boy. So this is where I looked on my images. I just looked for a boy falling. And I found lots of different options. Again, you can see here's the version I used. Click and hold until it pops. Add it to Photos. Go back to Remove. And so if you've done it before, you can see now it says download. We don't want to download. We're going to pull up until we see Upload Image in this blue. I want to put it in my photo, Use. And once it's done, click and hold. Add it to Photos, and then it's good to go on my sketchbook. So I can, again, mountains with the up arrows, place this little guy in here. Oh, it's so funny. Such a hilarious story. Then I'm going to say done. So, of course, I can keep adding all these details. I told you about if I had more time, I would decorate the outside of my picture so that it really looks like a quilt instead of just color blocks. Last thing you do before you are finished, you're going to put the text. Type in your name. You can type your class code. Remember, that is your number of your grade and the first letter of your teacher's name. So I can put Mrs. Maskell, drag it out of the way, done. And I'm going to save and upload to Canvas. I'm going to hit the hamburger, share, save image, one more time, hamburger lines, and then at the top you can find Student Canvas. I hope you had a lot of fun with this, artist, and I can't wait to see all the stories you create. Way to go.